Welcome back to Module 3. We're going to continue with exterior wind invasion, individual oils. We did the cool release exterior oils in the last video, and in this one we're going to do warm release exterior. And depending on how far we get, we may move on to the next category also, which is cough. We're going to begin with basil. And basil is a top note. It's warming. It's leaves and flowering tops are the parts distilled. Goes to liver, stomach, and kidney. It is a 4% dilution. And contraindication, no kids. And small doses in pregnancy. So those are the basics on basil. And then we'll look at the categories. One we know straight off. Warm release exterior. Food stasis. And tonify yang. Primarily kidney yang. So those are our categories for basil. Anti-inflammatory, stomachic, nervine, and good for snake and insect bites. Those are the actions listed in the Materia Medica. And then we come down to the functions. So release exterior wind cold, especially in the sinus region. The great sinus oil opens the orifices. And along with that brings the possibility for seeing a different path, for seeing things differently. It descends the stomach chi and resolves food stasis, dyspepsia, and nausea. It tonifies kidney yang to drain dampness from the lower heater, good for gout. Promotes lactation and relieves uterine congestion. And that promote lactation could possibly be that stomach channel affinity. And then read off some of the other notes that I have from Jeffrey Yuen and Josephine Spilka. It alerts and enlivens the senses. It's great to enhance concentration. A caution not to overuse it because it has the possibility of taxing the yang. And there are several oils that have this caution, several oils that tonify kidney yang and activate kidney yang, that if you overuse them, begins to tax the yang resources. So you could use it in rotation for up to like 3 months. It's good for people with depressive type bipolar. You can diffuse it to increase alertness. It's good for nausea, special nausea from chemo, used on Ren 12. promotes birth, promotes delivery, and that is by activating kidney yang. And that's why you only use a small dose in pregnancy. And you apply that at bladder 67 for that action. Nourishes the kidney spleen connection. It's especially good at this with evergreens. Promotes a connection to the outside world. If there's a lack of confidence coming from kidney deficiency, there can be a lack of connection to the world around somebody, and basil can help with that. It's good for depression and sadness, food sensitivities, people who eat little but still gain weight, that food stasis component. And promotes, it's pretty strong to promote Wei Qi movement in the intestines. So that's basil. Next up we have cinnamon. Okay, and we are covering, well, I guess we can cover both. We're going to begin with cinnamon bark and leaves, and then we'll do cinnamon leaf, and we'll talk a little bit about the difference between them. And remember, this part will get a little bit faster of going through the individual oils once we've gone through the majority of them, and we're just revisiting them later when we talk about different types of conditions, as it can start to feel like we're really slogging through a lot of very specific details. Okay, so this first one, when we're talking about cinnamon, we're talking about the bark and the leaves. And this is, unsurprisingly, this essential oil is going to be more similar to rogueway. And you can get the rogueway essential oil from Alchemica Botanical. Okay, so this is a base note. And I'm going to go through this a little more quickly because this is more in the warm interior rather than warm release exterior, but I do want to be able to compare it to the cinnamon leaf, and I didn't have this as one that we were going to talk about in one of our other discussions, so let's just go over it now. Its base note is hot, affinity for liver, spleen, kidney, urinary bladder. There's not too many essential oils that have a urinary bladder affinity. I don't know, I think we've got like 6 or 7 in the Materia Medica. And low dilution, 2% dilution, no kids, no pregnancy. Those are the contraindications. Also added to contraindications are heat, empty heat, and it irritates the mucous membranes. It's a stimulant, an antifungal, and a stomachic. For functions, and then categories, I'm just going to pop them over here. We've got warm interior, wind, damp, cold, B, and invigorate blood. Okay, so warm interior, wind, damp, cold, B, invigorate blood. Those are the and tonify yang. Those are the categories. Sorry, a little messy. And as far as functions, the leaf will promote body fluids such as sweating for when cold, and it warms the middle and lower jiaos to expel cold and tonify yang, invigorates the blood to promote menstruation and relieve cramps, strengthens the Ming Men fire. So that's real similar to Ro Gui. Let's see. And it does say that it is good for when cold, with chills and fever and body aches and no sweating. Good for deficient kidney yang, impotence, lumbar pain, frequent clear urination, and deficient stomach with cold and those types of digestive problems. Can be used as a warming liniment for muscular tightness and neck tension. Good on Du 14. Diffuse with Lang Lang to arouse sexual vibrancy. Increase uterine contractions during childbirth. Opens the lower back. You can put it on Du 4 to strengthen Ming Men. Opens the mid-brain. The bark is the important part. The bark is more powerful and can be more hazardous than the leaf. So when it comes to things like stimulating the yang, and high dose or frequent use will cause convulsions. You can use it on small intestine 3 to induce separation from the dumai. It's good for somebody who's overly, they don't want to interact with those around them. They won't engage. And this could be an autism type presentation. Promotes digestive enzymes for our fire or engagement. Frequent, copious, cloudy, pale urine, so damp, cold, Lin syndrome. So that is cinnamon, mostly the barks, really the cinnamon bark, similar to Ro Gui. And now we're gonna come back around, even though this did touch on the releasing when cold. We're gonna come back to the warm release exterior herbs and talk about cinnamon leaf. And this is more like Guizhi. So we've got a mid note. We're looking at the leaves. It's warm. Lung, heart, and urinary bladder. %4 dilution. Contraindications: no children. And not great for people with a lot of heat or deficient heat. So for categories, we've got warm release exterior. That's its only official category. It also has an affinity for the dumai and for the yang chao mai. Activates taking a stand, so Du and Yang Chao, putting your foot forward, your own foot forward on your own path. Functions, we've got release exterior to promote sweat for wind cold, invigorates the blood for menstrual cramps and can stimulate childbirth, and this will be more gentle than the cinnamon bark at that action. Warm the interior to promote digestion, transform damp, cold diarrhea, and bee obstruction. Good for wind cold and cold in the middle heater. Add to liniments to create a warming and penetrating blend, and it really does. Apply to UB62 to open the Yang Chao Mai. It also has the function of invigorating blood. I guess we talked about that with the menstrual cramps. And Jeffrey mentions that it promotes connection between the low and midbrain, the move from the primitive function into choice. So that's really the Dumai. Brings blood out to the surface and promotes connection internally. Can be irritating to the skin. So if you're adding it to those liniments, do so cautiously and keep to low dilution. You can inhale for when cold, or a chest or back rub, small amount, again, due to that potential to irritate. That is cinnamon. And now, what do we have? Ginger. All right, so we've got ginger, page 54. Mid bass note, hot, and it's the rhizome being distilled, and it goes to lung, spleen, stomach, kidney, especially spleen and stomach, really strong earth element affinity. 4% dilution. Contraindications: stomach fire, excess heat, and empty fire. And categories. Just erase this. Warm release exterior, warm interior, cold phlegm, tonify yang, invigorate blood. And it has a strong affinity for the Renmai. It is good for lung, large intestine divergence. Okay. It is good for excess cold and damp phlegm accumulation, for excess on the Renmai. The functions are to release the exterior of wind cold and resolve damp cold B obstruction. Really good at both of those things. It's very effective. Transforms cold phlegm, harmonize and warm the middle heater, destroy intestinal parasites, invigorate the blood by warming the channels. Good for deficient spleen yang with cold in the stomach. Use it in dilution in a liniment over the area affected by cold B obstruction. Can be used with clove for a toothache. Clove is a wonder for toothaches, just so you know. Let's see. Deficient spleen yang. It increases the absorption of herbs and drugs, and yet can harmonize their adverse effects on the liver. Promotes a connection to the natural and social world in a way that allows us to listen. Rids us of damp and cold. Opens the Renmai. Promotes connection via the Renmai. by dispersing what is in the way, what has accumulated along the renmai to block connection. It's one of my favorite oils. I love ginger. And hopefully I'll remember when we meet in person. If I forget on the first day, maybe someone could remind me. I have a lot of things that I need to try to remember to bring. I should start a list. But is to compare ginger from steam distillation, ginger essential oil from steam distillation, and ginger essential oil from CO2 extraction. And they're very different, and they're a lot like the difference in herbal medicine between using fresh ginger and using dried ginger. And that's really evident when you smell the oil and feel the oil. The fresh ginger that's distilled via steam distillation is a lot like the fresh ginger that when you're using it in herbal medicine, and the CO2 extraction is a lot like the dried ginger that we use. So just a cool thing to note, and hopefully we can experience that. And we'll move on to Litsea. Okay. Litsea, page 69. Litsea is a mid-note. The fruit is distilled. It's warm, goes to lung, liver, spleen, kidney. Dilution rate of 4 to 6%. That's a messy 6. Contraindication, deficient yin with heat. Yin deficiency heat. There's our basics on Litsea. It's another oil that I really love. Categories: warm, release, exterior. Wind, damp, cold, B. Tonify yang. And has affinity for the kidney, urinary bladder, divergent. And we'll talk more about that when we meet in person and talk about the other channel systems beyond the primary channels. Let's see here. Analgesic, stomachic, anti-inflammatory, and also analgesic on psychological pain. So that's a nice thing to keep in mind. It's good for wind and cold viruses. It has a very strong function of tonifying yang, kidney, spleen. Expels wind, damp, B obstruction, especially in the lower back. Releases wind, cold with underlying deficiency. Releases the surface. And those oils are so wonderful because so many of us get sick in the first place because of an underlying deficiency. So an oil like tea tree or Litsea is going to help you release the exterior, get over the wind invasion, but also support are wonderful to have. It invigorates the blood in the lower abdomen, useful for dysmenorrhea, painful menstruation. Deficient spleen and kidney yang. In dilution, you can gua sha the low back with this to invigorate the Ming Men. Helps apply directly over herpes blisters to help them dry up. Can be used with lavender on LI4 and liver 3 for motion sickness. And I have a little note here that of note with women that it can reduce FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. It is good for yang deficiency male impotence or low sperm count. It is an important divergent oil because of its capacity to tonify the spleen and the kidney and release wind and cold. So yeah, think about that. That's great for divergent. It helps to promote that spleen and kidney connection. You can use it on kidney 2 and spleen 8 for that purpose. Can be really pretty amazing for knee pain on spleen 9. You can use it on the shu points to bring the energy of the Zhang Fu out. You can use it on Jing Well points to activate the organ of the Jing Well point that you're applying it to. As I said, good for the herpes virus, can help the blisters dry up, and it can help clear up some of that damp heat that comes along with herpes, and it helps to tonify yang, which can lead, yang deficiency can lead one to be susceptible to herpes outbreaks. So for that reason, it's good for use between outbreaks, and then if there's active sores, you can use it on the sore to help dry them up. So that is Litsea. We're going to do one more in the warm release exterior category. And we're going to do rosemary. That's the next oil that we're going to do. And this will be the last oil that we talk about on this video, and then I'll start another video and we'll keep moving through release exterior, wind invasion, individual oils. Rosemary, mid-top note, warming, leaves are distilled, and flower tops. Goes to lung, liver, gallbladder, kidney. Gallbladder, great one to remember. This is a wonderful, wonderful oil to use with the gallbladder. 4% dilution. And contraindication, heat, empty heat, rebellious qi, and then some chemotypes are contraindicated for pregnancy and children. Those would be rosemary, verbenone, and camphor. This is really important to note because this is a great oil for children. You just have to get the right one. So the only rosemary that I carry is cineole, and that is okay for children and okay for pregnancy. Warm release exterior. Regulate qi. Warm interior. Affinity for the Dumai, Yang Wei, and the dye, gallbladder connection, and it can be helpful to consolidate the dye. Functions. It has lots of actions. I'll let you read through those. We're going to jump right down into functions. Promotes Wei defensive qi and yang movement on the surface to induce sweat, urination, enhance circulation, and concentration. So it is awesome at helping to increase concentration, promoting Wei qi, and because of that gallbladder affiliation, it can be really helpful in a wind invasion that has that Xiaoyang component, and it's really good for around the ear. Open the diaphragm and invigorate the heart. Improve memory and prevent dizziness by drying dampness. Stimulates the liver and gallbladder activity, bile secretion and production, good for hepatitis, cirrhosis, and high cholesterol. Good for deficient heart qi, acute liver qi stagnation, and cold in the liver channel. There's a couple things in here for topical: gout, paralysis, cellulite, B, liver gallbladder, part of a blend for liver gallbladder divergent. You can look more closely at that, and we can also talk about that. Applying a 4% dilution of rosemary to the points along the dye vessel to resolve damp cold in the lower heater. Apply to triple heater 5 to open yang wei mai. It can help somebody to be more enthusiastic about life and want to participate. So it's great for that type of depression. It stimulates Du Mai individuation, arouses love and fidelity in a relationship. And for that, you can use it on the pillow. Use on the spine to move energy up the spine. It is one of the most ascending essential oils. And that is why on the Dai Mai, it helps to consolidate, lift, consolidate. It's a very strong oil. It has a strong action. Let's see, Xiaoyang syndrome, mentioned that. And then some of the different chemotypes are discussed on page 102 on the next page. Not gonna go through all of those, but you can take a look at that. Okay, so yeah, this ended up being definitely a long enough video to stand on its own. So we'll stop there. That concludes the warm release exterior oils. And in the next video, we're gonna look at the individual oils and cough. And then after that, we have fire toxin, clear heat, phlegm resolving. So again, this is definitely our biggest module of individual oils, and we'll just keep getting through it. All right.